What is up, guys? Citrus here with the Week 19 devlog for Spirit Seeker, and this week we're going to be shaking things up a little bit. Instead of just showing you what's been done over the last couple of weeks, I think it's been like 2 since I last posted, what I will be doing instead is, of course, showing off the progress, but also going under the hood a little bit and showing some of the technical know-how behind what was done this week, particularly with this guy right here. This is the new Corrupted Spirit enemy. Oh, there's 2 of them now. Wonderful. And they have a little more complex behavior and much better visuals than the pill enemies that we've had up until this point. So as you can see, they're spawning these purple fire areas, which is kind of close to where I am. They're trying to target the player, but there is a little bit of a delay on that so that the player can reasonably dodge. And as you can see, I'm level 4 right now. I put a couple levels into speed, which is making it hard for them to keep up. But aside from spawning the purple fire zones that'll disappear after 5 seconds, they will also do a little charge attack, as you can see there. And if those hit, it will deal twice as much damage as they would just being in contact with the player, which is another way all enemies can deal damage, is by just being close to the player. But they die pretty easy, as most things do when you get to this point and you have the attack power up and a bunch of levels into damage as well. So now we'll go out of the game now, and we'll kind of explore all of the mechanics going into this enemy. So if I pull it up here and we have our scene view, there's nothing visible right now, and that's because if you remember from a previous video, all things are spawned in with their visuals and mechanics essentially turned off, and they don't get turned on again in the scene until the player gets within a certain distance of them. There's like a sphere collider on the player that's a trigger, and when it moves across these colliders, that's pretty much the only thing that is active on these things, is a collider with a rigid body, so it can do collision detection, and then it will call an activate function that's in this script right here. There's a basic enemy movement script that was sort of the start for this. It's the foundation, something that this subscribes to, so it'll do like the base activation things, which are just turning on a list of mesh renderers, which is the visuals, and then setting the nav mesh agent destination to the player. And once those things are done, there will also be some additional behavior for this. And one of the things is basically all of the behavior for this Corrupted Spirit is run through coroutine. So once it's turned on, it'll start checking distance to the player. And the reason it does this is because it only wants to actually do the charge, which is another coroutine, once it is close enough to the player to be able to do so. And it's doing this basically at the end of every single frame. So it's almost virtually something that's being done in update. For all practical intents and purposes, that's kind of how it feels in the game, but I do believe this is slightly less intensive on performance for the game, which is another reason the enemies are set up the way they are, like the visuals and mechanics being off is for performance. And so it'll check the distance to the player, it'll do the charge if it's close enough, but there's a cooldown on the charge, so it's not just spamming that simply because it's close enough. That was an issue I ran into at the start that just looked kind of goofy while this was a work in progress, was it would get close to the player and it would just charge over and over and over again, and it'd be like interrupting the animation to just start it all over again. And then the spawning the corrupt zones, in terms of code, I actually like commented on everything for this because it was a little more in depth, but this one gets a little more complicated because there's going to be a raycast from an origin point that's on the enemy. I'm actually going to go ahead and turn on these visuals in the prefab just kind of temporarily so you guys can actually see where everything is set up in relation to the actual enemy. And then there's these eyes, of course. And so yeah, this raycast origin is basically on its nose, and it's going to raycast from there to the target, which should be set to the player. There's no reason it wouldn't be. And if it's able to make that raycast, if it's in sight with the player, then it will attempt to basically spawn that purple flame area on the player. But it gets that position, and then it basically waits a couple seconds. It waits a half second. I think here, yeah, enemy gets current player position and waits before spawning a zone there. So yeah, it'll get the current position of the target at that time, and then it waits a half a second and then spawns the purple flame on that area that it got half a second ago. So that's kind of giving the player that time to dodge. And yeah, then basically it's just going to keep moving around. It's going to keep doing this. It has like a slightly random interval for how often it's going to be spawning these, so it's a little bit unpredictable in that regard. But as you can see here, this enemy pauses part, the enemy does stop for like a half second before it even gets the player's position. So there's a full second of stop before the purple flame actually appears. So there is a little bit of a telegraph on that for this enemy. But that's basically it. It is. I've got like all the variables and stuff sorted here, and yeah, all the fields are filled from the various things. I got the audio sources on the mesh so that when I do eventually get around to making this proximity based, right now I haven't done that because I'm lazy, I guess. But when that does happen, it'll be radiating from the mesh, because when that animation occurs, the base object is where the nav mesh is, and the mesh is what's actually animated for the charge. And this was very important, as it turned out, because I tried to have the animator on the base object with the nav mesh agent, but unfortunately, if you try to do animations that are like altering the position and the rotation and such of an object, that's going to cause some issues for the nav mesh agent. And there's basically going to kind of just be like some confusion that's happening between, all right, is its position supposed to be based on where the nav mesh agent wants to go, or is it based on what the animator wants to do? So the animator had to be on the mesh, which is a child of the base object with the nav mesh agent that's actually doing the AI tracking and moving it towards the player. So yeah, that's kind of just the basic gist of how this enemy is set up. There's also like some very basic HP and scoring things that I use for all of the enemies. If we kind of go into that, it's not terribly complicated. It's just got like a max HP, and you know, if it has the update health thing getting run, then it's going to update the health. It's going to remove the amount that is set for the player's damage, and then it's going to die, and then this is going to like call a couple things. It will call the actual death function within the enemy HP script, which basically kind of just turns everything off, and then it'll also run this enemy score update thing, which gives the player its points for killing the enemy. And I think that's kind of the gist of it for the most part, yeah. Aside from those basic scripts there, got the raycast origin, the mesh, the animator, and everything. Yeah, so I know that was kind of just me spewing words. Hopefully it made sense for the most part. If you'd like me to do sort of a more in-depth tutorial for how to program enemy logic like this one, so you guys can really follow along and maybe try to implement that into your own games, I would be happy to do so. But just let me know. And if you guys think this is a cooler way of doing the devlogs, where I kind of explain more of the technical details behind what happened rather than just showcasing how the gameplay looks, I would love some feedback on that, because yeah, this is my first time trying this as opposed to just playing the game and talking about all the new things that happened. But thank you for watching, thank you for supporting the journey thus far, and I will see you in the next video. Citrus out.